we are at, where we've come from, and where we are hoping to get to as women, whose contribution is often downplayed in society. So right about now, I will call on Hamida Apusiga and Victoria Wilson for their very first performance, a poetry recital celebrating today. Please let's put our hands together for them.
I am Lassie, well known for my physical features. When my name is roared, the thought that runs through the minds of thousands is beauty, but expressed in curves and spotless skin. I have been reduced to an object of commodification. Yes, they take interest in my soma, without having a look into my inner abilities and sense of intelligence. My very resentment then is gender, the question.
I looked at me and saw within me was fear and terror, escaping life and my past of horror. For I am told I am weak and no way for me to reach the peak. No matter my personality, I have no right to speak. But then I looked deep into the mirror and I saw a woman of value, a woman with a brave heart.
So then, what does this lie think? For I would not allow them cut my wings. I am ready to fly and stand the obstacles of life.
Hi, woman. You are not only conventional. You can also work as a professional because you are the true definition of nature. You have an exceptional habit of balancing, an inherent quality of multitasking. Oh, your time management is superficial.
I am a woman.
And that is who I am.
And who I am meant to be.
I shall rise.
And come forth from the ashes.
Bend my voice.
And I will speak.
Yes, we will speak.
Yes, we will speak. Unfortunately, I cannot do what they've just done. It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Victoria Wilson, and thank you to Hamida. And they are both members of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. We are so proud of them. Thank you very much. Please, let's do it one more time for them. Right, right about now, we are going to hear from our second speaker, none other but my very own boss, Mami Amma Pratt, Executive Director of the Obasema Summit.
Thank you, Kiza. Good evening. Happy International Women's Day. So let me quickly claim the two ladies. I saw you claiming them for Socialist Movements of Ghana. Let me happily claim them for Obasema. Thank you very much. But it's important to know that we continue to work, hand in hand. We are the same, one and the same, which brings me to what we are talking about today. Women inclusion in nation building. They say what a man can do. Oh, ladies, I didn't hear you. What a man can do. I believe that. I live by that. But let's think about it this way. I live in my house with my husband and my son, right? In the morning, when he has to go somewhere, when he wakes up, he takes his bath and he leaves. What a man can do, a woman can do better. Can I do that? Can I? Okay. Let's come to our homes. I can't use my house as an example, unfortunately. I think I had very radical and progressive parents. So in my house, not so much. But in the average Ghanaian home, and I think I've overstated this example, but I'll still use it, an Anekria example, you know. I mean, she lives at home with her brothers. There are only 2 sisters. So in the morning, when the brothers wake up and they bath, I mean, that's the chore. The chore is for them to bath and leave. Can Nanekia do that? Can she just wake up in the morning, take her bath, and can she do that? What a man can do, a woman can do better. Are we getting somewhere? Yes. Right? So, and I'm starting from the home and building, you know, into our societies and into, you know, our communities and nation building, which is our theme, which is actually what our theme today is. I dare say that in terms of our capacity, as in, you put a job down, you bring Makiza, you bring Theo, I dare say that we can do the same things. Theo is handling the camera now. We have Sewa who handles the camera just as brilliantly, just as passionately, same energy. So what a man can do, a woman can do, but there are conditions. No? There is the need for a leveling of the field, especially in the beginning. For productivity to be equal, some things need to happen at the base before we can get to the point where the superficial level. Are we in agreement? Because if from the house, I have to jump 28 hurdles, and my male colleague has to jump 2 hurdles, already I am disadvantaged. So today people speak and they say, why are women still agitating? Who is stopping you? Why can't you fly? The conversation is not that we can't fly, or not that we don't want to fly. We are saying that unclip our wings from the start. I've seen this brilliant artwork where there's, you know, it's like a race. Men and women are about to run. But in front of the woman, there's a cooker. You've seen it too, haven't you? There's a cooker, there's an iron, there's a ladle, there's a stove, and there's nothing in front of the man. So by the time they say, on your marks, get set, steady, go, I'm lifting a cooker. I'm lifting a fridge. I'm lifting a microwave. He's just running. That's the conversation we need to consistently have. Let's look at it this way. It is our responsibility, society, to make sure that we even out the field. It is not our responsibility as individual women to take on the patriarchy and take on governments and take on institutions and policies. We can't. It is the responsibility of society, and I'm saying society, I'm going to get there. Why I'm not saying it's the responsibility of government. I didn't say that. It's the responsibility of society to even out the field, so when we say go, we can all go. Which brings me to issues like laws, policy, culture. Because ultimately, these are the ones that hinder us. Now, was it Tuesday? Yeah. Tuesday. We met in Parliament. And it was a stakeholders engagement on maternity leave extension, paternity leave introduction, and the removal of taxes on sanitary pads. Now, as the conversation was going on, I moderated the session, and speaker after speaker would speak, and the men would, grab the microphone and speak. And as the conversation was going on, something immediately dawned on me. And perhaps when I tell you at what point you get it. So one of our parliamentarians grabs the microphone and she says that, she had worked for years in the education setup, that she herself had, I think, gone on to become an administrator of sorts, and she would have risen even higher if she hadn't gotten into politics. And for her, even though she's a woman, if she's employing someone, she's concerned because, you will take maternity leave and it will affect, your outputs. And we should be very careful that we don't push for something that ultimately affects women, because, the laws could be that give them 6 months maternity leave on paper, but realistically or practically, people would refuse to employ you because they don't want to deal with that, right? And she spoke and she spoke and she spoke, and other speakers came in and they spoke. And as I sat, I just said to myself, what do people think we use maternity leave for? Right? What do you think we use maternity leave for? Think about that. So for our employers, they think that when you have a baby, when you literally pop out a human being from your, what? You want time to do what? Chill? Right? Listen, there are women who give birth and become depressed. There's a name for it. It's been studied extensively. Ghanaians don't handle it well enough, which is a conversation we need to have as part of any bill that wants to tackle maternity. It's real. My friend had hot water in her hand. She was literally about to pour it on her baby when her mom came, grabbed it from her, and pushed her away. It is happening. Women need mental health assistance when they give birth. Women can't naturally breastfeed their babies when they have them. If I tell you the stories, the things we see that nobody ever told us in maternity wards, you'll be shocked. So when we ask for maternity leave, it is not to chill. People take maternity leave, go back to work, even more tired than when do we understand? Now, let's come back to society. It is our responsibility to make sure that more than 50% of the population is well, and I chose my word very carefully, well, in body, in mind, in spirit. Because how do I contribute meaningfully to nation building if I am unwell? Not just physically, but also psychologically. So it is society's responsibility. It is our responsibility to take care of more than, in any population, women are more, in any population. In Ghana, we say, 52% of the population. So it's a society's responsibility to take care of the more than 52% of this population. This issue on sanitary pad, I feel like I'm going to sound like a broken record if I touch it. Because what more can we say? What more can we say more eloquently than every member of parliament has said? What more can we say that is more profound than what the Speaker of Parliament himself has said? What more can anybody say that is more touching than what our present Vice President has said on the issue? And yet here we are, nothing gets done. The prices remain the same. The issue for me is this: the women constituency. We talk about it all the time. The fact that as women, if we rally round our issues, we will get results. We let other things divide us, like partisan politics, which really, what is that? Really? For me, our responsibility is to rally round our issues. As women, perhaps the time has come for us to rally round our issues. Right? Which brings me to perhaps this very important conversation around representation. I'm big on representation. I will speak about that in a minute. But before I get there, let me make the argument that oftentimes what we rally around is not the issue, it's the personalities. And that's where we get it wrong, right? Because if we have a system that works, if we have laws and policies and a culture that works, it doesn't matter who the personalities at the front are. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. It doesn't matter where, be it the north or the south or the east or wherever you find yourself in a place. It is the laws, the policies, the rules, the culture that rules. So for me, this issue about the women's constituency is vital, that we rally round our issues and we make sure that our issues are at the forefront. So we have systems that work. But how do we do that? We do that by knowing, and again, I sound like a broken record because I always speak about this, the fact that we consistently need to know, to engage, to show up at places like Be Heard. When there's a need for a demonstration, that we show up. Because numbers matter. Which brings me then to representation. And I don't want today to turn into another argument about representation. But I insist that we need to see women in places. We need to see it. Because if we don't see it, we can't believe it. But you see, here's what. If we've rallied around our issues, and our laws are right, and our culture is right, then any woman would do, no? Because really, what power would that woman have? Everything is right. No? No? I'm smiling. No? Because then the conversation becomes, we put women there, and they don't do anything for us. But we put men there, and they don't do anything for us either. Are men doing anything for us? In Parliament today, what's the ratio? What have they done about, this removal of sanitary pad issue? What's the conversation? So for me, then we've sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Eliminated all the arguments both ways. If the systems are right, the culture is right, the rules are right, the policies are right, then we can sprinkle the women there because it won't be about them. But for me, it's important that we see the women too. Because the word by itself, representation by itself, means that leadership reflects us. When I think representation, I need to relate. So if you have a leadership that's all male, that's not representative of me. And that's shocking because we are more in any population. So if leadership should reflect us, actually, we should see more women. There's so much I've written down here. There's one thing that I say all the time when it comes to representation. It's a conversation that perhaps because of the campus tours, and particularly because of GIJ, every time I get opportunities like this, I bring up this thing about women looking for opportunities, be it in school, be it in, professional spaces, and having to deal with men that ask for favors to give you a space. It comes up most engagements that we have. And I have consistently said that it is a conversation that I am no authority on because our realities are different. I say that all the time. I have had a lady say to me in one of those engagements that for her, it is not a moral issue, it is a survival issue. What do you say to that? How do you challenge that, right? Which for me is why representation then becomes important. Because if women are bosses too, when I present my CV and Adam presents his CV, I am not disadvantaged immediately. At least I'll have fair hearing. At least the CVs will be looked at, and then, determinations will be made based on perhaps what's on the CV or what's in my mind. I saw activity in the back. That's why I paused. I'm getting ready to be eaten up because of the representation issue that I spoke about. Please, let me put it on record that I will not engage. I am not going to engage. Okay. Right. So, for me, even as we hold society responsible, as women, we also have roles to play. We have our parts to play. For a lot of us, because of representation and because of words like inclusion, we have an entitlement, mentality. We think that there are not enough women in parliament. Why don't I just go and contest? And because I'm a woman, and there are not enough women, I have to be allowed. Well, it doesn't work like that. Inclusion is not an event. It's not something that will just happen. We need to start from the base, right? We need to be involved from the base. So there are things to do. Get involved. Get working. Learn. Be involved. Start from down. DCE. No? If there are smaller positions to be filled, fill those positions. Now, the great thing about that is that as you do that, you are learning. You are gaining experience. You know the job. You can then give more when the opportunity is presented to you. But for a lot of us as women, we always want to join from the front. Because we think that because there's only, 14% representation in parliament, and I'm a woman, and I have degrees, and I can speak English, and I look good, somebody owes me a place in parliament. Or somebody owes me a place in government. It doesn't work like that. You see, that is why when then you are given the opportunity, it shows that you joined from the top. That there's really no substance. The foundation doesn't exist. And if the foundation doesn't exist, what's going to happen? Absolutely. So, women inclusion in nation building, it is our collective responsibility. We have to make it happen. We have to make sure that we are involved. It is about organizing. Like everything else that we want, we have to make it happen. And I'm saying this to you boldly and with my full chest because I've already said that it is society's responsibility. But guess what? We form society. We are the bigger population in any society. So we can't sit and wait that it happens. We have to make it happen for ourselves. So we get involved, we organize, we know, we do. We make sure that the right policies are done, that the right laws are in place. Where there's a need for conversation, we show up, and we show up brilliantly. and we do what we can. And when there's space for leadership, we lift up our hands boldly because we know that we have a strong foundation and we can do. Then we say, what a man can do. Way better. Way better. Back to the women constituency. And here I'm directing you towards somewhere, right? I heard my comrade Loretta say that, we've just had a woman introduced as the running mate, for one of the political parties. And, what is that going to do and what does it mean? And I appreciate that. I actually agree with you, Loretta. But representation, also involvement, also organization, which is what we always do, right? Even when we decide to push Makiza, once we push Makiza and she gets there, we think the work is done. But that's only the beginning. As women, it is our responsibility to make sure that she succeeds. And how do we do that? We tell her when she's wrong. We point her in the right direction. We tell her what the issues are. So she represents us and our needs and our aspirations. Can we do that? So that it's not like we've elected Makiza and we've left her on her own and we are all, sitting in the back just watching her. Because when we consistently do that, she will fail. There are also issues that we simply cannot turn a blind eye to. Injustices of the world. We cannot. Like Palestine. I remember somebody asking me, Amma, you are going on a demonstration for Palestine. Why? Have you exhausted all the issues in Ghana? But our struggles are linked, no? And again, we don't rally round geography and we don't rally round person. We rally round issues, struggles. That's, for me, where the women constituency should be focused. Struggles. So as a woman, my interest is in justice, wellness. It's not a word that is very revolutionary, but it is. Absolutely. Once we do that, once we rally around our issues, we organize, happy to get our hands dirty, we will change society. No? Society then would reflect us and our needs. And then we will have leaders who will leave no choice but to do right by us. For me, that is how we build our nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very kindly. Comrade, if I should call you that. Mariama Pratt, Executive Director of the Obasima Summit, and she's touched on into details very important points that we should look at, and she's taking us directly into the Palestine conversation. So at this juncture, let me call on Theresa Boateng yet again, who has a solidarity message for the women of Palestine who are facing worse forms of oppression in this very time, given the Israeli occupation of Palestine. Please put your hands together for her.
In the streets of Gaza, where bullets stray, thousands fall, victims in oppression's cruel ballad. At the mercy of injustice, lives lay bare, a stark reality, heavy in the air, in the shadowed alleys where tear gas swirls. A people resist. At the masses protest, around the world,
echoes of struggle in every cry. Brutality swims in the pool of blood. An unjust tale beneath the troubled sky. Through the rubble-strewn lanes where genocide is tasted, we hear the cry of the Palestinian woman, reverberating at the sight of her lost child and family. In the city of Gaza, Palestinian people resist. In the city of Gaza, Palestinian women resist. Right in the face of genocide, against all forms of oppression, the Palestinian women resist. Right in the face of genocide, they stand strong, a proof of resilience against all forms of oppression. Justice must prevail. Justice must prevail. From the river to the sea, Palestine must be free. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Indeed, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. We cannot have this conversation and celebration today without talking about the women in Palestine, because we do know that the struggles, as Mami Amaprat said, are linked and interconnected. So it's very important that we have this conversation. We do not have much time at this juncture. Let me call to the microphone our very own Madame Na Ayele, who is the head of PR and campaigns at the Trades Union Congress. Please put your hands together for her.
Can I move this down a bit? Yeah, okay. Can I help? Thank you, comrade. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for the opportunity given me to be here. I bring greetings from the family of workers in the Trades Union Congress across Ghana. And it's a joy. I was leaving the office at 3 o'clock and my boss was like, hey, what time are we supposed to close? I said, well, you will close and go home when I am with the SMG talking for women. And I was told that I should look at not the affirmative action bill, but the maternity provisions in our laws. Well, incidentally, there is so much information, or information abounds on this. So I am just going to refer briefly to something that Amma alluded to in her presentation. On Tuesday, indeed, we had all the stakeholders in Parliament, and we were very grateful for the opportunity. We had the MP for Adenta Medina, Honorable Francis Xavier Sosu, lead this and have it organized at Parliament, because they looked at the three things that have already been referred to: maternity leave, paternity leave, and taxation of periods in the country. Well, I was a bit emotional at a point, because I thought that as Ghanaians, sometimes we look at ourselves and we say, we have things turned upside down. I mean, taxing periods. I mean, really. You know, if you have to look at this, you just wonder. One time we had a conversation in the office and we were like, hey, these people who do business and bring in these sanitary pads and all their accompaniments are really weirdo. So this is where they want to make their profit, on women's blood. That's kind of weird, but it's the reality. Sometimes when you say these things, it's as if you're hitting too hard at somebody. Well, of course, that's somebody's business, but it's the wrong kind of way to make your money. I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry. And we live in a society which sometimes, even when you're driving and you are shouldered off the road and you try to get back, a man looks at you and goes like, you know, it's a society that is very patriarchal. You know, And we have to fight extra hard to. But then one time, a friend who is a Scottish told me, you know, when it's lunchtime in Gleneagles, where she lived in Scotland, you saw all the men going out to lunch in their white shirts, and their hands were on the window of their cars if they were not using air conditioning. And there were so many of them, and she kept wondering to herself, where are all the women? You know, so it is not a fight or an issue for just Ghana, or for just West Africa, or for just Africa. It is a global issue. And we all need to recognize that, especially those of us who are in, and I'm alluded to something else that I want to touch on briefly before I go on. The politics of our day. You know, even life itself presents its own politics. So we might as well be interested. And we get interested in knowing the issues. What are the issues being discussed? What more do we have to learn? What more do we have to read about? What more do we have to engage on? What are the things that should be of importance to us? And I will say to those who are involved in student politics, congratulations. Don't let up. Don't stop doing it. Continue doing it. And now, because we're told we should include everybody, we try to pull along those of our colleagues, our mates, our friends, who don't seem interested in this area. We need to help them. We need to bring everybody on board, because otherwise we would be left in the space alone. Otherwise, oh, they're standing there and they're alone in that space. And all of us actually have to jump on and latch onto it just so we can have a single battle. You know what? That day on Tuesday, and I have put down a few things from there that I want to look at. Some of the things that were meant, we have been told 14 weeks, and that is what the campaign has been on for some time for the TUC, for example. And by the way, the TUC is a pressure organization of workers. It represents workers and workers' interests. And sometimes it speaks for the ordinary. There are too many people who have come to the TUC, not members. It's a member-based organization. But too many people have come to the TUC fighting one battle or another, that the TUC has picked up these battles and got results for these people. On that Tuesday, we looked at, in fact, the consensus at the end of the discussion was 6 months maternity leave. But we have just 12 weeks. And today, WHO is saying that when you give birth, what do you do? How long do you breastfeed the baby for? How are you supposed to do it? Exclusive. So let's juxtapose this with that. You may say that, oh, sometimes she talks some way, somehow. You are breastfeeding a baby for 6 months, exclusive. And then your country tells you, go on maternity leave for how many weeks? 12 weeks. Doesn't make sense. So isn't Ghana turned upside down in that discussion? Right. Let's move on. So there is the mother's recovery, which has been talked about, so I'm not going to go there. And what you referred to, the depression that comes, is called baby blues. And you've carried in your stomach a baby for 9 months, and you're tired, you are perplexed, you are beaten, and some have to go on bed rests for the whole 9 months period. You know, and then the baby comes out, and people take it for granted. Your body actually dies for you to bring out another human being. And people around you take it for granted. So I say in this discourse, the women would have to tell the men how you feel. After the baby came, and you are depressed because you have been taken out of a certain situation, and now you are in a different one. Sometimes you're not even sure where you are, which is why a woman would take a hot water bottle or kettle and would want to pour baby because she's not even conscious of it. So these are discussions that we must have. The mother needs to recover fully. And only 14 weeks, I'm sorry, is just not enough for that recovery. Perhaps what we could say is, okay, if we insist on 4 months, why don't we create these spaces? In the TUC, that space created is called the breastfeeding room, where you have your nanny or people who may have been hired take care of these spaces for the mother to come down every now and again to breastfeed the baby. If you were in that mother's shoes, how would you feel? Your baby is close by, somebody is keeping an eye on the baby. How would you feel if you went back to your, now it's computers, went back to sit behind your computer and worked? How would you feel? Yeah, you would have a peace of mind to work. I mean, some of these conversations are just obvious. So I'm saying again to you that as a country, we have things turned upside down. Because, I mean, why do we have to belabor the point? And then again, there is the bonding of a mother and a baby. You have to go to work so quickly. Some say 12 weeks. When a mother loses the baby, the employer wants the mother to go back to work immediately. After 2 weeks, oh, after all, she lost the baby. Hello? That is traumatic. So if you're not traumatized by losing your baby that you have actually carried for 9 months, and somebody thinks that, oh, that's child's play, let her come to work. The person simply doesn't understand. So that individual needs sensitization and education, and it's our responsibility to do this. So we can't take it for granted. And then for us as individuals, I said earlier that there are so many discussions going on. There's so many conversations along with the battles that they come with. We need to get ourselves acquainted with these conversations. What are the important things? What are the important issues? So that for us, those of us who want to go on social media, we don't just tag on to the issues that are being discussed. We sway the conversation to look at the important issues. We sensitize on the issues. We educate on the issues. We engage as much as we can. No disrespect, no insults, but in a very respectful and forceful way. So if somebody came at us, we just ignored it because that won't be important. Again, I would want to look at the paternity leave. Paternity, and the conversation is rife, and I am sure that you have heard that. Oh, as for the men, why do they need to take leave? For what? Well, the men need to take leave. The men need to be home to bond with their children. They should be there when some go through cesarean. So that if you have gone through a cesarean birth, even getting yourself out of bed is a big deal. So that when your spouse is around, your husband happens to be around, first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he helps you through issues. Usually we want our mothers-in-law and our mothers to come help us. Well, it is your baby. Your mother-in-law didn't tell you, go and give birth to this baby. It is your responsibility. You, the man and the woman. That's what the two of us need to do. That's what the two of you need to do. And so the man needs the space to also bond with his children. And you know why a lot of the men ran away? A lot of the men ran away. I'm sure if I should take the poll here, you see the number of men who have checked out. They check out all the time because, if you have them stay there too and go through. I have a friend told me, you know, our first baby, I was in the birth room with my wife, and I think the pain that I wanted to faint. I said, oh, you who didn't carry the baby for 9 months, you want to faint. When the one who is giving birth is there, say, oh, but the pain was too much. I don't think I can go the next one. Because it's a big deal. Because it's a lot of stress. Because it's a lot of pain. Because the woman virtually, have their body renewed to bring another soul into the world. So the men will have to have their paternity leave. I don't know how many weeks will be decided depending on which organization you work in. But it's very, very necessary. It's very, very important so that we don't have our men jumping ship all the time. After all, if he doesn't know what is going on, what business does he have staying around? He has to be involved. He has to be part of it so that he can learn and bond with his children. They're doing this together. If the woman is not there, the man is there. If the man is not there, the woman is there. That is how it has to be. And for me, I think this issue of taxing the period is overflogged. It's overflogged because we have talked about it. It seems as if it's enough, but not quite. We haven't quite started that struggle. Because we remain at point zero or ground zero. We have just been told you go around and you don't find any change in prices. Everything is the same, as if nothing is going on. And I would want to hear your thoughts on what more you think we need to do. I talk on radio sometimes, I talk on TV sometimes. I think that we need to synergize the struggle. We need to decide, we need to have a kind of agenda and say to ourselves that this week, next week, that week, or that day, we're coming together, and for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about nothing but this. We're going to be fighting about nothing but this. We're going to be conversing about nothing but this, because we don't see any change in the status quo. We've talked, we've gone on a demonstration to Parliament, we've presented this, and we're grateful for all the work that has been done so far. But we still quite at point one. We're just at the beginning. Nothing has changed. People who are doing their business and getting their profits on blood are still getting their profits. In fact, on that day, many suggestions were made and proposals were given as to taxes. In fact, there was a tax expert who tried to explain to us and gave us some proposals as to what could be done and alternatives that could be had so that if it is a local product, then you look at removing the taxes and the ones that come in, or the international products, then what? We just want the prices to change or to be minimized, the taxes removed. We don't, and sometimes I think you don't get the results you want until you hit the streets. Now is a fashionable thing to do. If you don't hit the streets, you don't get heard or listened to. It would be interesting to discuss what we could do more. And Loretta, as you lead this fight, this struggle, let's think amongst ourselves, what can we do more, especially on this removal of taxes and the hiking prices on sanitary products? What do we do more? How can we get some results? We're looking at people in Accra. Maybe those of us working may be able to afford one or two. What about our younger siblings in the hinterlands? What about our younger sisters who will cut school because they don't want to be soiled? What about the teachers in the schools who have supported so much and continue to support to the extent that sometimes they're even broke because they don't have the money to support anymore until their next salary? So let's continue the discussion. Because I am sure that, like we're told, two heads are better than one. So that if we should join our thoughts together, we may be able to get more out of this. I just want to briefly look at, I tried to search for the provisions, you know, when you're looking at Ghana. Well, first, let me begin with this. It says, how many weeks pregnant maternity leave? In that discussion in Parliament, I think the consensus for me was 6 months, and it makes sense, because if you're doing an exclusive breastfeeding, you must also, you know, and we must also fight for spaces where mothers can even take their babies to their workplaces. If you are in an organization where your boss thinks that you have to come to work 3 days after you've given birth, this is an issue to raise an alarm about. You don't keep quiet about it. Because even some of the people who happen to lead us are not aware of these things, and we need to show them that these are the provisions made. It says, if you are employed and pregnant, you are entitled to 52 weeks. That's 1 year of maternity leave, no matter how long you've worked for your employer. This is made up of 26 weeks of ordinary maternity leave and 26 weeks of additional maternity leave. How our women have gone around this is adding their leave to the maternity period. So sometimes 4 months, 5 months, but then it has to be captured in our statute books, in our laws, that you are doing 6 months exclusive breastfeeding. Into whatever days you have are your days. You decide to do what you want with them. So they could be joined to your maternity leave or whatever. But then the law says 6 months, and 6 months is what we're taking to take care of our children before we go back to work. And I want to bring something to your attention from the Labor Act 651, 2003. It says that the labor regulations govern Ghana's employment and labor laws. The Labor Act in Ghana clearly distinguishes between a contract of employment. It includes an implied contractual term that the employer and employee have a duty to mutual trust and confidence. And that includes the confidence that when you are on leave, you would be paid. And so, for that matter, if you should go on maternity leave, you must be paid. Because some employers take for granted, they don't even want to pay you when you're on holiday. But actually, the law says that your holiday, when you go back to work, the payment should be double. Because everybody is resting, and you are the one in the space working. My comrades, I want to end here. I asked for how many minutes I should speak, and it looks like a free range. I think I have talked enough. But I want to conclude with this bit. It says, if you are employed and pregnant, you are entitled to 52 weeks of one, and this is, by the way, from the UK, you know. So if you are pregnant and you must enjoy 26 weeks, how many weeks do we enjoy? 14, 12 now. 12, 3 months. 3 months. We're now agitating for 14 weeks. But then the new thinking is that we should go the whole haul, 6 months. You know, and this is going to be a struggle. This is going to be a real one. But when we're together, nobody can break us. So as we include those who don't have voices and voice out what their thoughts and their feelings and their struggles are, I am sure that we would include these 3 things, just so we can ensure that our periods are not taxed, that men who are spouses, whose wives may have given birth, also need to bond with their children. Even that alone, just so they don't run away. They run away too much. And I am sure that if they were there, they would be able to bond with their children and would stay. And also, the maternity leave is crucial so that the mother can actually take better care of the baby. We also need spaces to bring our babies into our work environments, special places created for them so that they can breastfeed their children and work happily so that they can be more productive. Thank you for your attention.
Can you help me with this? But I think you can hear me. Thank you so much, Antina, as I choose to call her affectionately. We are grateful for the education that you've given us, and particularly, I was looking forward to hearing from you, given the fact that you work with the TUC and have all the knowledge about labor, what's right, what's wrong, what should be done, especially given the fact that when we are having this conversation, I mean, we need to pay attention to the fact that a lot of the corporate entities that we have, or these institutions, do not really have safe havens for mothers, you know, who have just delivered, to take care of their babies, as she said, to have the peace of mind to be able to ensure their full productivity in the workspace and so on. I am sure that all of you have picked a thing or two. I didn't see a lot of you writing, but it's okay. I know that you are keeping whatever you've heard in there somewhere. This is the part that I was looking forward to, because I know a lot of you have so much that you want to say, so many questions to ask, and probably, you know, contributions to make as well in your young lives. And so, oh, somebody said, not young lives, okay, old lives. Okay, so I think that what we'll do is to take the questions and contributions. Do we have a microphone in the audience, or do we come to the podium? Loretta, what do we do? I think we should take the questions in the audience, so we get somebody to pass the microphones around. If you have any, please put up your hand so that I can see. We can start with maybe first 5 or first 4. Please put up your hands. Just questions, contributions. Okay, I see Hamida, I see Blaise Tulo, convener of Accra Collective. I see Jessica, the Women's Commissioner, Women's Organizer of the Accra Collective. I see you. Okay, so let's start with Hamida Apusiga. What will happen is that you make your contributions. If it's a question, our speakers will note them down and they would take turns in answering the question. So Hamida.
Thank you so much. I have listened very carefully, and then I'm really battered. Like, as of now, I'm very emotional. And there are 2 things I want to speak up. And one is, we as women or sisters, we don't engage each other. We don't follow each other along. If I am a journalist and I know that I have a sister who is interested in this field, I have to go along with that person. If I'm a lawyer, I have to go along with that person. You have to always try to encourage those around you. In as the little thing you can do, you can move with those people, and it's going to help us get a change. And secondly, let's look at all the time we have programs like this, where, especially Obasima, I've attended so many seminars, like on that seminar about it. And then the problem is that we don't engage our mothers in the market. These women have a lot to say. And I believe our mothers in the market, if they are aware that there is taxes being placed on pad, like sanitary pad, they will speak up. So how then do we go out and educate the ordinary market woman that, oh, this is what is going in the country? We can speak to them in our local language. This is what is happening. Let's move together. And I'm sure if we communicate to them, they will come out. We will go out and...
We take it all. I understand how emotional you're getting and passionate you're getting about, this conversation. All the time they tell us, you women, when you have conversations like this, you always become emotional. It's because of the systemic failure that we are facing. It's because society is failing us as women. That is why we become emotional, in a bit to get our messages across. And if it takes us being emotional to get a message across, we will, So Blaze, let's hear what you have for us.
Hello, Happy International Women's Day to all working class women of the world who are fighting seriously to change the exploitative and oppressive system that working class people are facing. I also like to pay tribute to a young man who died 2 years today, Ayanda Ingila, a comrade of ours who dedicated his life in the Frantz Fanon School, training working class men and women towards changing the society in which we live in. I think this day is very, very important for all of us. And what has happened over the last 3 decades is that the essence of International Women's Day has been hijacked by right-wing reactionary elements who have sought to downplay the role of this day in the struggle of women across the globe. International Women's Day has a particular history. It's not a history of inclusion. It has never been. It has been a history of resistance. We cannot forget the garment women in the 90s who rose up in the factory and demanded for better working conditions in the factory. And when they were protesting against the oppressive system that exploited them, they never forgot the working class men who together shared the same history of exploitation. Because they sang a song when they were protesting and agitating. They said, as we go marching, marching, we battle too for men, because they are women's children. We cannot, the fight against patriarchy is not a sexual struggle. It's a gender struggle. And a gender struggle to the extent that the system of oppression and exploitation historically genders people and gives us different roles to play in the social production of our material existence. And women, especially black women, not just women, black women are at the bottom of that production chain. So anytime you fight against capitalism, against exploitation, against oppression, you are inevitably fighting for the liberation of black women. And I'm very happy that our speakers touched the Palestinian question. There are women in Ghana today who never cared when we went into the street to fight for the Palestinian people. They never joined in any of the demonstrations we went to. But right now, the battle of imperialism is happening, the battleground is in Gaza. Any victory for the Palestinian people is a victory for women. Because women, anybody who speaks on Palestine says that who are those dying? Women and children. So when you fight for the liberation of the Palestinian people, you are fighting for the liberation of what? Of women.
Of all women.
So the class struggle is central. Any victory for the class struggle is a victory for working class women. And also, and sometimes it baffles me when I listen to my comrades sometimes, because I am working with you, okay? And when I listen to the arguments of representation, I'm hearing my comrades saying that, oh, I prefer having Jane Mensah as the chair of the Electoral Commission than having Comrade Mensah of the Accra Collective being the chair of the Electoral Commission. Because when Jane Mensah took the throne as the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, she underscored a commission that produced a leader who is imposing the taxes on sanitary pads. So it's a class struggle. It's any argument that doesn't put the centrality of the women's struggle in the class struggle is just advocating for equal opportunity domination. What you are saying is that you do not care whether it's a man who exploits you. What you want is that you want a woman to exploit you. But I don't want a woman to exploit me, neither do I want a man to exploit me. I want people who care about decent society, who care about the liberation of our people, who care about the decent history of the garment workers who rose up and fought for the liberation of women. And today, all the major successes that has been chalked by women was not done on the basis of inclusion. There's a famous article called Gendering the Agenda, and I want all of us to pay attention to that article. It underscores how women went to the United Nations protesting with placards to demand for all the victories that has been chalked by women historically. So it's not about slogans, it's about resistance, it's about struggle that will bring the victory that we need for the emancipation of women. And I want to conclude by saying that the victory for the class struggle is a victory for women. And that is where our attention must be based on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Blaise. Do we have any more so that we can address the issue of representation and have some points of clarity on that? Any more questions or contributions? I see one hand here, and then Jessica.
The little contribution I have is more like a question. Usually when we are talking about the maternity leave, we focus much of our attention on the postpartum, that is after the delivery. I think we have to also think about months before labor, especially during the 8th to 9th month. That is when the woman is heavily pregnant. Can you imagine a woman who is 9 months pregnant will have to go to work every day? So how do we include that to the leave that is after, before the labor and also after the labor? That is what I just have to.
Okay, thank you very much. Jessica?
Thank you, Comrade. I think I disagree with...
Jessica, I think you need to stand so that the cameras can capture you.
I think I disagree with Comrade where she said men should also go on paternity leave. You see, in this case, it is women we are talking about. This maternity leave of a thing has been something in the system that we all have been talking about for a very long time, and it's still not happening. And here she's talking about the paternity leave of men. Men should go on paternity leave for 3 months or something like that. Yes. So my question now is, in an organization where maybe couples are working, let me say 3 or 4 couples are working, and maybe the women happens to put to bed. So is she telling me that the couples all together should go on paternity leave?
Yes, they had a baby together. But go on, sorry for the interruption.
Okay, so what happened to the organization productivity? In this, just like Comrade Amma said, that most bosses are, I think, okay, Comrade Amma said, I think there's a place where she said some bosses.
An argument was made that if you take too much maternity leave, you would smash yourself out of a job.
In cases like that, so I don't understand why she's saying that men should go on paternity, because it will conflict the whole thing and knowing the kind of system that we are having. And again, she also asked a question on the sanitary products, that what do we do? What action should we take? You see, the case of the sanitary products is something heartbreaking for every woman. Anytime the issue comes up, it puts us on emotional state and all of that to why our blood should be taxed in raising or growing our economy and all of that. So my own suggestion is that I think that Ghanaian women or African women, in fact Ghana women, should sue the government because this is, I think we should sue the government internationally because we keep talking, and nothing will be done. It's not like pouring water on the stone, at the end of it, nothing is done and all of that. So I think we should look into it and try suing the government for this because it's disrespectful to us women.
Thank you, Comrade Jessica. Comrade Nayele will take that, but we've had Comrade Ama will respond to the question on representation. Comrade Nayele will respond to that of Jessica and the paternity leave. The rest were mostly contributions. I see a lot more hands, but I think that before we do another round of questions and contributions, we should take the answers or the contributions from our speakers first. So please.
Thank you. So, I mean, I share in your emotions. You know, I do. I really, really do. I like what you said about pulling other women along. It's a very valid point. You actually mentioned Obasima, which is why I feel compelled to say something. And perhaps to also inform you that along with what you are saying, Linda, so that's Linda Weavers, Linda and everybody else in the academy came up with a brilliant idea that beyond the summits that we have, beyond the campus tours that we do, beyond the market activations that we do, we could have like a community of women, where the mentors and the mentees have a more sustained relationship where people are actually carrying, women are actually carrying women along. So Linda has a mentor that's a lawyer. Linda, you met her last week. I think last week there were lots more engagements. Abigail is also here. No, forgive me, Gladys is also here. So we are doing that, and for a lot of reasons, not the least being financial, we can't do it on a wholesale. So small. So I appreciate your emotions, and it's a very valid reaction and way to look at issues. Normally, we are always being told not to be emotional, as if being emotional is a bad thing. It's not. It's valid. It's a valid expression of concern. It's a call to action. So please, hold no apologies for being emotional. It's part of who we are, no? It's part of who we are as women, and we make no apologies for that. Also, to the issue about markets, we actually do, as Obasima, go into the markets. We have market activations. We engage market women, so it's something that we actually do. To this issue of representation, so Comrade Blaze, I don't think you were paying attention because I did not say any of the things you attribute to me. Absolutely not. Nobody would say any of the things you are attributing to me. I believe that in this room, all of us are progressives. All of us want forward movement. Nobody is looking for anybody to oppress. What I'm saying is that if we have systems, I'm going to repeat myself, if we have systems that work, if we have laws that work, if we have cultures that work for us, it doesn't matter if it's a man or if it's a woman. I think I said that. And I said our task is to make sure that we build a society that works for us. So I started by saying that it's not our individual responsibilities, but then I ended up by saying that it actually is, because we make up society. So as we wait on society to do it, we'll be doing ourselves a disservice. Let's make it happen. Now, the issue about men and women only came up to suggest that, for me, then it's not really about whether it's a man or a woman, because if men are letting us down, women can let us down. Men have been letting us down. But then if the system works, then it doesn't even matter. But I also made the point that for any leadership to be truly representative, we need to see the women. I don't see how that amounts to women should oppress us. So Yeah, I said I wouldn't engage, but you see, Blaze, you forced me to engage. I'll leave the rest to Comrade Anthony.
Okay, please help me. Right, I want to begin from the point where Amma began about the engaging sisters in the market. I want you to know that the market women you see in all the markets across Ghana, I haven't been to a Nigerian market, or for that matter, markets in the West African sub-region, but I can tell you on authority that they're very well organized. They have associations, they have credit union groups, they have all sorts of formations. So they're really organized. And I can also tell you that for the TUC, we have those we call, or comrades we call, Union of Informal Workers Associations. There are different associations in various markets that are associated with the TUC. So they're organized, they're perhaps what we could do more with these groupings is to have them in fora like this. They can't say, so that we think, what more can we do for the taxation of blood? You know, but I tell you, they're well-formed, they're organized. Recently, we heard talk of formalizing this informal sector. For me, I need to read about it so that I can understand. But these are people who are able and capable in the spaces they find themselves. So we need to join hands with them, and that, for me, would be the next steps. Right, and so prenatal, postnatal. You know, usually we have the trouble when the babies come. And I'll give you just one example. Just yesterday, I went to the employment ministry, and I was standing there for a pregnant woman to climb up. And you could see clearly that she was in her 3rd trimester. And then she climbed and came up, and she said, which is normal. It's no big deal. Then I said, sorry, why? And she burst into laughter. You know, but then the prenatal we take for granted, because usually we would all take days off, and the trouble is when the baby comes. Days that you are entitled to, that you would be told, or some way, somehow, they do some kululu and, you know, and things. So that's the big deal. For me, prenatal is no big deal. You know, and so when the baby is coming, and then after the baby comes, especially in the relationship with our work environments and the people who happen to head, you know, these spaces. So for me, that's the big deal, which is why I think that it's important to look at them. Maybe there's more conversation to be had, you know, if you're looking at post, you know, as against, if you're looking at pre as against post, you know, maybe there's more conversation to be had. I looked at this issue of why men should take maternity. I wanted to find out what Google is saying. And here is what. The first one I stumbled on is, dads who take paternity leave often have better relationships with their partners. True or not? True. This is especially true when both parents can make leave or take leave at the same time. Men learn with their partners how to become a family and navigate a new world of sleepless nights, logistics, and mental checklists. And this is very true. I am not saying this. Experts are saying this. Okay, so I'm going to go on. There is more, so I will read the more that I have come across to you. It said, should more dads take paternity leave? What it means then is that there are spaces where paternity leave is already being taken. And there are organizations and companies in Ghana that are already doing it. So maybe we need to borrow from their, or learn from their experiences, or ask them at least, what or how does this practice benefit you? And then it goes on, it says, for men, there is less data to suggest parental leave negatively impacts their careers. If you take leave when you are a parent, a man, it doesn't impact your career negatively. And for me, it is a good thing. And it says that, in fact, some studies have found the opposite. Men who take paternity leave are seen positively and may even have more positive career outcomes. This tracks with overall gender-based workplace inequality. And I think it's true. And for me, around me, I'm not a researcher, but around me, too many men check out. Too many men run away. Too many men don't know what is happening on the ground. And so for that reason, I said, if they have to be around, it is good for them. It is good for, for their own well-being. Maybe we need to be educated and sensitized on these things more. So those are just a few. And these are things that I'm reading from Google. There's more. But I think that we all need to acquaint ourselves with the information, just so we will see how good this is for us as a country. And I can tell you, there are countries that have women in higher positions, more of them, and these countries are doing well. So the other day, I made the point that it depends on how fast Ghana wants to grow. Because women come to the table with ability and a heart. So that's one. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'd want to respond to Jessica. Sometimes it feels like we are always protesting, but it's yielding results, really, because up until November, even the locally manufactured sanitary pads, there were taxes on cotton and all that. So when we went to Parliament, we made the noise and all that. It's a little step. Sometimes like we are pouring water on stone, but yes, it is penetrating. So if we continue and we are consistent, it means there is pressure going on somewhere. For the finance minister to mention it means that they felt shaken. Something was moving. So we would have to continue. And also with the paternity thing, just think about it. A woman gives birth. At night, the baby keeps crying. And the man would have to sleep because, tomorrow I'll go to work. And the woman, because she's on leave. So let's be on leave and take care of the child. In Ghana, most women don't have even washing machine. You'd have to wash your baby's clothing. The baby is crying. You are the same person feeding the baby, taking care of the baby, all these things. You need help. Sometimes we are fortunate to have our mothers and mother-in-laws come in. In cases that you don't have, then what? It's always you, because the man would have to go and look for money. And yes, I have work. Some men even go, they close and they say, when I go home, my child will cry too much. The baby likes crying, so let me stay out a little longer. It happens in our society. So that's also the reason paternity leave is important. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I have to. Also, Blaze. This issue about, the collective class struggle and why all struggles should be about that. Absolutely, I agree with you. A collective class struggle is how we would move forward. But let's take an issue like this one, this issue about the sanitary pad. As we collectively move in one direction, as a class, struggling for all the things that you and I have been struggling for, including Loretta and Makiza and Latifa behind you, we would have to make some time and talk about sanitary pads. So the two struggles go hand in hand. The women issues will not sit and wait and take a back seat. the two struggles will move hand in hand collectively. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers for, giving us points of clarity. I don't want us to drag this because we'll keep going on and trying to, banter here and then all of that. I don't think we have the time to do that. But what is important, I haven't even called for people to speak again, but I see hands up, but I'll pretend I don't see them. Okay, so honestly, when we have these conversations, just like the man in what? Just like Comrade Amma said, it's not a fight against the men. We need to come to a realization that it's us boxing the system. So we need to reorient ourselves and reorient the next generation. I say this everywhere that I go to, of boys and girls to understand and know and appreciate the fact that this is a struggle collectively, against systemic failure and not against men. Okay, so at this point, I see Blaze's hand, but I'll pretend I don't see because we don't have the time to do the back and forth. We appreciate your contributions and your concerns. However, you've already had your take to, speak. But Mr. It looks like Albright. Oh, it is him. We are glad to have you here. Please, let's hear from Mr. Albright.
Hello and good evening, all the wonderful women in the room. It's really a privilege to be here as we celebrate International Women's Day. Now, a nation or a community that ignores 50% of its constituency will not be self-optimized. In Ghana, we're about 54-46, I understand. In other countries, more so and less so. But I've sat and I've listened, and I'm a little bit concerned as I have listened. And so I'm going to share some of my concerns. Regarding the sanitary pads, I think it's quite clear that it ought not to be taxed, but it is. And so in the meantime, if a woman can do what a man can do and do it better, I'm not hearing any creativity around the resolution of the solution. None. All I'm hearing is, let's bash the government, let's agitate for less tax. Nobody here is saying, why don't we start cottage industries that will allow us to have it at a cheaper price or less than we are paying now? I'm not hearing that. Or are the women against starting their own businesses? That is number one. Number two, how many people in this room actually run a business? How many people? Put your hands up if you run a business in this room. Nobody. And so you do not understand what it takes to run a business in this country. Zero. And when you run those businesses into the ground, there will be no business or no work for you to go to. If you run a business in this country, put your hand up. Or running your own business. So you have no idea. You speak out. Thank you very much. What business do you run, madam? Brown sugar. All right. If you run a brown sugar, and I'm delighted you put your hand up, then you will know how difficult it is to run a business in Ghana. I haven't finished. And so when you take on the difficulties that are inherent in running a...
because of our time, can we please summarize our conversation?
I'm rounding up, madam.
Okay.
When you take on the difficulties it is to run a business in Ghana, then you need to take that into context when you stand up and begin to champion for certain
Thank you
rights.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a lot to say about this submission. I'm not quite sure that I am allowed to do so, but I see a few hands here and there. I saw Lena. Please, let's make it as short as possible because we are far behind time. It's just 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then...
No, you are not allowed to. Vetoed out.
Comrades, I just want to make a few comments about the issue of maternity leave. There are some crucial facts that we appear to be missing. One, if you have seen a 6-week-old baby before, you can understand why it's insensitive, it is callous to ask a mother to go to work after 6 weeks. A 6-week-old baby is helpless. I've seen some before. Can't feed itself, can't talk, can't do anything, can't move. So if you ask mothers to go to work after 6 weeks, you are just being completely insensitive and callous. You understand? A 6-week-old baby cannot survive on its own. The second point, which is most important, is this whole clear argument that industry will suffer if you ask mothers to go on extended maternity leave, who will do their work and so on. The process of giving birth to babies is the process of producing the next generation of workers. Without workers, industry will collapse. Without active people engaged in production, the state cannot function well. So the responsibility to produce the next generation of workers is not a private responsibility of mothers and fathers. It ought to be a collective responsibility of society. That's the argument. You understand? Now, there's this thing about paternity leave. And you hear people talking about paternity leave and you begin to wonder. First and foremost, most women after giving birth need to be looked after. And all the panelists spoke about what women go through. Some of them have psychological issues and so on. If you leave the baby to them, they will kill the baby, not because it's their fault, but because they're in a certain psychological state and so on. So women themselves who have given birth need to be looked after. So paternity leave is to enable the female partner to play a role of stabilization in that period. You understand? It's very important that we understand that. Now, under normal circumstances, mothers and fathers live together. And the normal ethos about marriage is that they should cooperate in bringing together children, bringing up children and so on. How do they cooperate when the man has to go and slave? You know, come home tired, unable to make any contribution and so on. In any case, the issue of paternity leave is not new. It's been tried in countries like Cuba and others. And the results have been most positive for the development of society. You understand? So all those who are arguing about, no, if you push the extension of maternity leave, you disable women and so on, they are talking absolute nonsense.
Thank you very kindly, Comrade Pratt, for that. Any more few contributions and suggestions as we go for it? Not Comrade Blaze, we don't have time. Thank you for your first contribution, we appreciate it. I'm sure you've gotten some points of clarity from Comrade Amma as well. We can still continue this engagement beyond here because we are taking contact and going to create a platform where we can, further advance this conversation. So please make it as brief as possible because we don't have time.
I want to know the vivid outcome about this tax exemptions on sanitary parts, because in our current parliament, we have about 40 women representing 16.6 million Ghanaian women, from Oslo Usu to the rest to the gender ministry. These are institutions headed by women. Current CJ, the former PA for His Excellency JDM, and other women on this field. If you check the report by the Finance Committee in Parliament, always in Parliament bringing about the tax waivers on some things that you think it doesn't make sense, millions of euros and dollars, and whereby these governments cannot, reduce this sanitary pad issue, I think it's very insensitive on the part of this government. So I want to know, from the time that the movement went to Parliament to initiate about this conversation with them, what has been the solid outcome?
Right.
If it is very slow, then I think they should be gingered much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very kindly. So this will be our final round of contributions and questions. Our speakers will box them all in, about 2 minutes so that we can call it a day. Comrade Lena or Linda. Lena. Okay, so she goes first and then.
Okay. Sorry about my voice. My contribution is to the fact that if inspiring inclusion, I think it runs back to the foundation, family. A lot of time, I think, let me just bring it to our world, Ghana, like this. There are times where we celebrate Founders Day and all, and then it looks like most of our founders in leadership are all men. So I asked myself, what role does their wives play? That sometimes those men don't even get to inspire us about that. Taking our founder, Kwame Nkrumah, for instance, Osajefo, we don't get to hear conversations involving times where he was in office, the role the wife played for us to celebrate that. But it all runs about we celebrating founders and all that. I feel the conversation about their support, making them a complete person, has to come on board. Because if a man goes out running for leadership role and the woman is at home doing something in support of the man, I think that woman should be given an equal credit as well. So in as much as we dedicate time or period for Founders Day and all that, I think it's quite rational for us to incorporate the benefits or the support and services their spouses have put in places for them. And I think from there, it would inspire issues around feminism and all that. Thank you.
Okay, I will not comment on this one, but let's take Lena.
Thank you very much. I listened to about the discussion, and for my conclusion, I see that it's time for women to build unity among us, because I'm sure with unity, we can move to the top. Because at this moment, we have our men who stand our back. So I'm sure with unity, sorry to say, it doesn't matter where each or everyone is coming from. We all have to come together and push to the top. Concerning the sanitary, I'm sure we can move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Comrade Pratt is itching to respond to the comments about the spouse of Nkrumah and her role and all of that, but I think that we will take our final remarks from our speakers, and then we'll bring the program to a close. We will definitely engage beyond here, because I see there are a lot of things that we need to educate ourselves about moving forward in the struggle, and so on and so forth. So let's take our final submissions from our speakers, and then we'll bring the program to a close. I think we'll start with Comrade Loretta.
Okay. Comrade, I think I'd want to respond to what our comrade said. It takes 6.5 months to plant cotton for you to yield results, to get cotton to start even saying you are going to do sanitary pad. And I won't stop bleeding. The 6 months, I'll bleed every day. And it doesn't mean that because we don't have factories, or we don't own enterprises, or we can't speak out. We've met people like you. We met a woman who said, "You people, what do you want? How can I go and take loan and come, and you don't want me to get profit on the sanitary pad?" It is not about you getting profit. And it's not because you have a factory, other women, we can't all have factories. If she has a sanitary pad factory, she does. Look at all of us. How many sanitary pad factories are we going to have? That is not the argument. That is not the argument. We can't say that because women are we not being industrious because we do not have factories. We know that it's difficult to run business in Ghana, but we are saying that we will have to bleed with dignity. All we are asking for is bleeding with dignity. Is it too much to ask for? No. We need to bleed with dignity, comrades. We cannot. Okay, so about the women and founders, we in the socialist movement of Ghana celebrate the life of Nadede Ashikinsha, Hannah Kujo, Susanna Lassan. We have a lot of women, so we say founders. Founders, not the founders that you know as the big six. We say founders, which includes Amma Nkrumah, the market women, Nadede Ashikinsha, and all that. All these women played this role, but that's why they say history. They always say her story, and they never say her story. We would have to say our story and make it visible. If we keep reading, and this is a final one, the socialist movement of Ghana gives you a platform to learn some of these things. It is free for you to join. We form collectives. You can talk to us. We can meet, think of how we can make Ghana a better place. Please, join us or leave your number. Let's have a communication after this. And you are free to be members. Thank you, comrade.
Yes, please. There's a tendency in all conversations, let me rephrase that. I think that there are times where conversations should center on humanity. And for me, that's my biggest issue when it comes to the sanitary pad issue. It's not about, any conversation doesn't matter. Any other conversation, the only conversation that matters to me when it comes to the sanitary pad issue is a conversation of humanity. That is it. The fact that we are here, we are female, we bleed, and we should not have to pay for it. I feel that there are some issues that are just, this is not me saying, this is the Speaker of Parliament saying, are just unconscionable. The word he used was unconscionable, right? And so that for me would be the sanitary pad conversation. There are some issues that I feel we cannot touch. This one is about life. It's something that happens to every girl as soon as she hits a certain age. Every woman. These days, the age has been dropped. As soon as you hit 9, you start menstruating. And so for me, that's about nature. That's about the continuity of life, the continuity of everything. Auntie Nana gave the example of a country that had, which women had decided not to give birth. If women decide not to give birth, that's full stop to our existence, our very existence. And so for me, there are some issues that there's no conversation, there's no debate, there's no talk. We need to do right by ourselves. I'll speak to the issue about Kwame Nkrumah's wife, and women as wives and the contributions that we make. I'm a wife. I have nothing against being a wife. But I don't think that my existence should be about my role as a wife. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know if you understand. So this thing about leading from the back, I always get a little uncomfortable when it comes up. Kwame Nkrumah himself writes about, for instance, his mother. And I'm trying to remember the name of the book. Mercy, can you help me? The name of the book that we read and reviewed at the Freedom Bookshop. Thank you. And in that book, he speaks extensively, about traveling back home and his mom and his relationship with her and, his intentions for Ghana and the continent and how his relationship with his mother. So, we are here and we contribute. And I appreciate what you are saying. Sometimes our contribution is not upfront. Perhaps what you are saying is that every contribution is valid. And I agree with you on that score. Every contribution is valid. But you see, I don't want us to stay on, what do we call it? We call it soft power. You know, she stoops to conquer. She leads from the back. I want us to move away from that and take our position as full human beings that are just as capable and can contribute just as much. Right from the front. Right from the front. Thank you.
Right, so I'm going to make this very, very short. And the point, just to reiterate that point, that a woman giving birth is a continuity of life and is a contribution to national development. So that's one. And then she has to do something else, be a wife, be this, be that, and all that. And in other spaces, those are counted and paid for. You know, so it's about time we started looking at those. You know, when I'm in spaces like this and I'm asked, do you do this? Do you run a business? I'm like, uh-oh. Even if I run a very big business, I won't raise my hand because you're picked upon as somebody was picked upon. You know, and it's important that we know that, as has been said before, I'm not going to belabor the point, but the thing is, I mean, if condoms don't have taxes, I don't see why sanitary pads should have taxes. It doesn't matter which business it is. It doesn't matter whether I run a business or not. Yeah. I mean, this is, and for me, and I'm not going to go that route, but then the thing is, periods, I mean, blood money. I mean, we shouldn't tax periods. Is there any other way that we can do our businesses, that we can run businesses without actually having to gain from young girls' blood? I mean, that's just how to look at the issue. And for me, this is no debate. And we should be ashamed as a country, especially as businesses, if we're benefiting from this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. All too soon, we've come to the end of today's conversation. Of course, there's so much that people want to see. Of course, there are a lot more contributions to take and points of clarity, questions, and so on. But that is why it's important for all of us to leave our numbers behind, especially for us young ladies who want some, to get some more education about some of the arguments that we advance every now and then. Join the Socialist Movement of Ghana. As Comrade Loretta said, it's free. There's so much opportunities if you join us, because there are study groups here and there to help us, understand the nature of the struggle, and to help us also understand some of these conversations that we have every now and then. So let me now call on Mercy Dada to give us the closing remarks as we bring this program to an end. Please put your hands together for her.
Comrades, we've sat a lot and we are all yearning to leave this space. I'm too sure of that. But I would reserve my comments on the discussions that we've had here. I just want to say that before we head out, thank you all for showing up to our event. The conversations we are having today are not conversations that should end here. We need to continue, but we shouldn't just talk. We should do the talk, work the talk. It should be actionalized. It's not about sitting in a space and discussing and bantering about ideas, but being on the ground to do the work. Because if you are not on the ground, you never understand the reality. So thank you all for joining us, and a big shout out to the tech team, organizers of the event, the women's wing. Thank you all, and have a lovely evening.
So, of course, it's quite obvious, Comrade Mercy has brought us to an end of today's International Women's Day celebration. We're happy that all of you, with the gazillion of events that there were out there, chose to join us here at the Socialist Movement of Ghana headquarters for today's discussion. Special thank you to Professor Akila Soya, who has been here through it all. Listening to our conversations and all of that. He hasn't made any comments, but I'm sure that, he's going to put it down somewhere, somehow. Thank you all for coming here tonight. My name is Markiza Micheline Latifa, a member of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, and also a television presenter working with Pan-African Television, the best station in Ghana at the moment. Good evening.
Truly African.